Hey everybody, welcome, Honored Ones Podcast, episode 16, yada yada yada. Yo, BR, so I've been thinking about this for a second. Do you have moments where people in your real life call you by your YouTube handle, kind of like jokingly?
Thankfully, no. That would
No
be very
way.
weird.
Do they
That would
know about
be
your YouTube channel?
some of them, but very few of them. I just kind of keep the my cover, my alter ego, if you will, is just I edit videos. I just edit videos and get money, which technically isn't untrue. That's actually like part of my job, but I just don't tell them the part that I do YouTube. Like some of my closer friends know, but I think it would even be weird for them to call me by that, just because it's like I don't
Wow.
know. It would just be very awkward. Like if someone called me if someone was like, "Hey, Ronin," I'd probably look just because I'm like, people online call me that or whatever.
Mm,
But it'd be weird if somebody like in real life was like, "Hey, Ronin," I'd be like, what are you doing? Like you know who I am. Like I'm not a YouTuber to you.
yeah.
Um,
The only reason I ask is, I'm sorry, hold on. Bro, secret identity, Ronin. You're like out here living a double life. I should have fucking done that. No, bro. People in my circle IRL, they've been known about my YouTube channel since like day one, right? Sometimes they just whip out my fucking online name in casual conversation, and it's like a chill down my spine every single time. Whenever we're about to play games, whenever we make plans, they'll like whip it out, just like to tease me, lovingly. By the way, I should clarify, they're not like berating me about it, but
like,
they're
haha,
like,
you have a YouTube channel. Like,
yeah. When it comes to relationships outside of the internet, my response is to always try to have a degree of separation there. But for them, I guess it's just me being me. I don't know. It's just mad uncomfortable to hear creams like said
I'm
by
gonna be
people to my face.
yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like, even talking about my YouTube channel in real life makes my skin
Yes.
crawl. Like, unless it's like certain people, it's like, dude, ew. Don't talk to me about how my YouTube channel is going. Like, if it's just a passing, oh, how's it going? I say good. But if you start getting like detailed, like, oh no, dude. It's just like when I'm out and about with friends and family or whatever. It's just like it's just not that. It's not. That's not really the. It's just kind of awkward. It's kind of like imagine you're just hanging out with somebody, for people that don't do YouTube, if you need an example, and somebody just starts talking to you about like work, but not just like how is work. They're like the inner details of what you do. Like I don't know. I don't know if even that's a good analogy, but it's just kind of
Yeah,
like
no,
weird. I
actually,
just want to talk about it.
it's like imagine you call yourself like on FIFA or 2K, what basic people play, normies if you will, and they say some shit like hey, butt lover 6969, what's good? You're like, that's inappropriate for this baby's funeral.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that you would say that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because like that's such an online thing, you don't say that shit outside the purview of the internet space, the metaverse, if you will.
of course. Yeah, it's just it's just kind of like it's just like a weird, inappropriate like context. It's just the best way to say it is like it's inappropriate contextually, not in like the it's vulgar way, but it's just not like right for the scenario. I guess that's like the best way to put it. It's just so it's so weird in the moment that I'm like, I really wish you didn't do that. And can we move past it now?
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, anyway, that was like a small little opening tangent. Let's get into the chapters this week. They've been pretty nice. Little thing here for me.
mhm.
I just want to get straight into the meat with the My Hero Academia chapter and straight up just say, so what do you think the quirk is?
Honestly, My Hero hasn't even inspired me to think about like things that just aren't shown. Like
Yeah.
I have no idea, and I'm perfectly fine with just letting Horikoshi tell me. I'm not really super invested in theorizing about what his quirk is at this point. Um,
Yeah, and okay, I know. Like, here's the thing: 7 out of 10 chapter or 8 out of 10 chapter. It was probably a good chapter. I think I'm or we are probably not gonna try to be artificial about it with My Hero anymore, just for the sake of filling out time.
brevity, yeah,
Yeah,
just
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It wasn't boring. I just like nothing really inspired me to like come on this podcast. Hit up my fucking sexy co-host here and say, hey, Brocanus Ronanis, what do you think of this new My Hero chapter?
I'll put it like this. The cover page for this chapter was the best thing about this chapter dropping. I really don't care about this whatsoever. Like, I feel like the dialogue between Toga and Uraraka is kind of clunky. Deku rushing off to save everybody is cool, whatever, nice character thing. Dabi versus Todoroki, somewhat interesting, I guess. Honestly, I think it's a 6 out of 10 chapter. Like, it's not bad. It's like, I guess, above average. It's not like a horrendous chapter. But God, is it just like, is My Hero solely here for a warm up for like a better chapter? In my opinion, like.
Yeah, I think My Hero's probably not gonna have a good chapter until Deku and Shigaraki finally face off in some way, or one of the other two boys does something, or oh my god, I'm bored just thinking about it, dude. I literally felt myself like getting bored. What the fuck?
I'm just hoping Dabi's backstory that we go into, like with how he survived all this stuff, is fire.
Dude, I
no pun
legitimately
intended.
forgot that's how it ended. I read it like yesterday and I already forgot how it ended.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm just hoping it's Dabi's backstory is good. If it's not, that's gonna suck. But overall, my chapter was fine, I guess. That's how I feel about that.
All right, now on to JJK. So I mentioned this to you over text, and I said slightly disappointing JJK chapter for the first time.
I could see that. Like, I'm not mad at it. Like, I completely get the take.
Wow, I thought this was gonna be a whole thing. All right, okay.
Agree, but like, it's not like I don't understand why Gege Blue Ball does. So like, I get it. I'm personally just not mad at that. Like, I just see it as like, oh, my expectations are subverted. Holy shit! Like,
but okay, I shouldn't say it's like a subversion. And that means it's negative. I come at it from. You're referencing You're referencing the domain expansion thing, right?
You were hyped for a triple domain expansion. Yeah. You didn't get that, so it's disappointing. I get that. Like, the logic makes sense to me.
Yeah, not only that, but I was actually more referencing the cockroach coming back. It's just not a thing I'm a fan of in fiction generally, and it's one of the main gripes I ever have with a particular series, like especially series like One Piece or Bleach or like Black Clover. But I'm genuinely not a fan of like the defeated villains coming back up thing, because for me it's like if you have the energy to affect anything after your defeat, you're kind of playing possum, or like you're just, because with here it stung a little less because obviously it's literally a cockroach and it reincarnated in more ways than one. Too many sorcerers, bro. Too many fucking sorcerers. Like straight up.
I get that. I think here it's not egregious because I don't really like fake out deaths or whatever typically. I think here it's not egregious, one, because like we already knew the cockroach had parthenogenesis like from its introduction. We already had explained that this is something very possible for this curse. We just, I guess, didn't take it to its logical conclusion that, even if the player cockroach dies, it can reincarnate into another curse spirit that has very similar properties. Because this is the way I interpreted it, at least, is the cockroach that Yuta killed is still dead. This is just like
it's a new curse spirit. Yeah,
it's a new curse spirit in the same way. But I'm just not mad at it because one, the cockroach didn't really do anything on its own. It came at a time that was convenient. Like, it's not like the cockroach was like strong enough to deal with him. It came in. Uro couldn't use her curse technique because of the domain expansion clash.
Right.
And then she gets kind of off guarded by Yuta. And then Ishigori just really hammers it home and like hits her point blank with a granite blast. So it's like, okay, I like that. Even though the cockroach is here, it didn't steal the show. Yuta like casually walks up to it and blows its head off, and then goes in to fight Ishigori. Like, it was a cool, unexpected twist, but it didn't like overtake anything else about the chapter, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it like it was, maybe a 7 is like too bad, but like probably an 8. For JJK is like, it feels like a 7 for a different series or like a 6 for a different series, which I guess speaks volumes to how good JJK is, but what are we, JJK stands?
Yeah, like I don't even like the series like that. Come on now.
Yeah. What?
So one thing real quick, I'm probably sitting at an 8 as well, just because like this is like one of the few examples of I don't know, I don't know how I feel. Like it's not even I don't even think this chapter really did anything wrong. It just
Yeah.
didn't have as much hype as the chapter before, which
Oh,
is like kind of going to be hard to do.
I think I know what it is. I think it was a different reading experience, and I think this kind of segues beautifully into our main discussion for today, which is about like pacing and readability for every series. Essentially, we as like JJK weekly readers get used to a certain structure or like way of writing for Gege, and it's usually par for the course that like a domain expansion signals the end or like the deciding fact, yeah, the fight is over, right? And even more so, he never extends any fight in the series beyond 5 chapters. So it was kind of crazy to see that like this fight felt like, oh, it's getting extended or it's not coming to an end, because based off last week's ending, I don't know about you, but like I definitely expected like, okay, 3 domain expansions. There's going to be a winner next chapter, and then we can move on to Hakari or Maki or whatever. But then, Cockroach coming back, the domains getting canceled out, like Ishigori and Yuta are gonna scrap. It feels like, oh, we have 3 more chapters of this to get through now. Fuck. All right. So, it wasn't like disappointing, but it was like it felt like a soft regression.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, like, I'm not like, once again, like I said from the beginning, I'm not even like upset at the take of like, oh, this is a disappointing chapter, because if you were like everybody else, we were expecting a three-way domain expansion, you didn't get that. I'm like, I literally could not be mad that you like your expectations were in subverted in not a good way. Like, I think it would have been more hype to give us 3 domain expansions simultaneously. Um, but I also think that like Gege tends to do this a lot, where not this particularly where he like gives us a domain expansion but it doesn't actually happen, but where he introduces an ability or like hints at one existing, but like we have absolutely no idea what the extent of it is. Like, so for example, we now know Yuta has a domain, but we have zero idea of what it's like.
Yeah.
He does something like this very similar for the 6 eyes for Gojo initially. He does it for Sukuna's ability to use flames. Like, we don't like, even though we know he can use them, like we don't know why he can use that, and he can use his like slashing techniques. We don't, for example, even Megumi Shikigami, something we've seen since chapter 1. There are still, I'm pretty sure if my count is right, there are still several Shikigami he just hasn't shown, like he just hasn't used or hasn't tamed yet.
Yeah. Honestly, dude, I love this series, right? Like, we love this series, you and me, collectively. I speak for both of us. And when it comes to Gege disappointing us, oh god, no, that felt like dirty to say. Like, okay, I don't want to say disappointing, but like I've alluded to this before in previous episodes, but he's done this thing where he kind of, I feel, set himself up a little too high. Like he just set the expectations a little too high, right? He should have sprinkled in some more mediocre chapters in between. So like, see, like chapters like this would be like a 9 instead of an 8 or a 7, right? Compared to like the 10s we usually get week to week.
For real, his
Yeah.
fault. Nah, but I get what you mean. Like, I get it's kind of like it's inevitable, right? When a good series is good for a long time, expectations are just naturally going to be higher. So it's a chapter that isn't as good, even if it would be good or even great by another series standards, will like seem disappointing. I, for one, like didn't get that disappointing factor. Was it as hype as last chapter? No. Do I need every chapter to be as hype as that chapter? No. I enjoy chapters like this where we get a lot of like expository.
Yeah, no, I don't think like this chapter is probably going to age well when it's wrapped up in a volume, because it definitely has the middle of a volume feel to it, if you get what I mean.
I agree. I think so. Like, I think we got a lot of information here that's like super cool. Mainly the one being that like a domain, like 3 domain expansions clashing is like so complex that like so my little theory is that if Cockroach hadn't entered, right, the 3 domain expansions would still be like existing, because if that like 3 domain clashes is more complex than 2. Obviously, Ritter is stating that like the internal and external conditions were different or whatever, and it made it like unstable. The addition of the cockroach is what actually made the barriers fall apart. To me, that kind of implies that we may still see like a three-way domain thing without an unexpected visitor. Not in this fight. I don't think in this fight, but I think like that's something that we still may come to see. And honestly, I was talking about this with a friend earlier today.
Mhm.
For most characters, it wouldn't even be something I'd bother discussing. But for Yuta, is it even like out of pocket to say he could possibly just open a domain expansion again?
So I don't like. Okay, I'll put it to you like this, right? If they were doing the domain expansion at the beginning, I think he could do it again, right? But I think after his battles, and especially after you spamming reverse curse technique this much, and now with the domain and Rika and all this shit, I think Yuta's kind of at his limit. And okay, sorry, I'm kind of bipolar right now. I think Yuta should be at his limit if he was like any other character, but his face just has not changed an inch, bro.
What I'm saying, like he notice the only like his face. It's not like Yuta's just like unable to express anything, right? So he can
Yeah.
get surprised. Like when Ishigori shoots off his granite blast, even though his curse technique should be like you know, like unable to activate properly,
Hmm?
Yuta surprised. When the cockroach enters the domain unexpectedly, Yuta surprised. But like after that, he's kind of like, oh, whatever. Like I get it now. Like I can fight him now. Like this isn't an issue. And also when you combine that with the fact that like his cursed energy, at least in the last chapter, was supposedly refilled by Rika, right? Like Rika being like completely manifested was supposed to completely refill his cursed energy, and the fact that the narrator just said that Rika's abilities were increased, like out of desperation to like get Yuta back or whatever, makes me think. Now, I don't necessarily think a domain expansion is going to happen. I just think the like if Gege wanted to, he's given us a reason as to why Yuta, who was supposedly out of cursed energy not but 2 chapters ago, is able to do it now. But this fight could go so many ways. Like Rika's full anyways, Rika's full manifestation could like deactivate mid fight, which would be kind of crazy because
Yeah.
then Yuta would get
But
packed up. But I don't know.
also there's another factor, and that's the 5 minute timer. So the cooldown period, do you think it's similar to like fuck, you don't read One Piece. Okay, so in Luffy's gear form, yeah, he can't use Haki for like 10 minutes after he powers down from gear fourth, right? Um and I'm wondering if after the 5 minute thing, it's something similar with Yuta's cursed energy reserves, where he just needs time to refill it, or he can't use it for the rest of the day. Because the rule for domains generally, if you're not like weird exceptions like Gojo, is once a day is your allowance, right? I don't see why Yuta would need to obey that rule as well, because more so with Ishigori than with fuck name Uro, yeah, more so with Ishigori than with Uro. I feel like it's kind of a deadlock here when it comes to remaining cursed energy on the back.
Maybe, but I don't think in terms of ability it's a deadlock. I think that Ishigori is kind of like relative, if not vaguely above Yuta and or Rika. I don't think he's able to fight both because I don't think at any point Yuta has ever fought Ishigori with Rika. In fact, I remember Uro is the only one who's gotten double teamed by the both of them, and she was kind of like beat up.
It just to touch on Uro for a sec, I cannot gauge how strong she is. She really seems like the weakest out of the three of them. And like I say that only because the way she's fighting is like, oh, she's fighting for her life. Like she's like, this is a matter of survival for her, right? She's still like scrapping and she's still putting up a really good fight, like an insanely good fight, right? And she's like a very infuriating opponent, especially when it comes to like warping energy blasts and shit like that. How do I like? She's like, if I was to assign each of them a number out of 100 in terms of like how much of like their effort, energy, whatever they're themselves they're putting into this fight, I would say Yuta, just eyeballing it, is putting like 60 to 70. Ishigori is like 70 to 80, and for her it's like 90 to 100.
That's interesting because I'd honestly argue Ishigori, at least based off of portrayal, seems to be the one holding the most back.
Yeah,
Yuta
well,
seems
I mean,
no. What I mean is even Yuta seems like he's been expending more of his full abilities in this fight.
But Yuta doesn't really convey exhaustion normally, because like we've seen God, have we ever actually seen Yuta be tired? That's crazy. Now that I'm thinking about
I
it.
mean, we've seen Yuta been stated to be close to like running out of gas, but like I don't know how serious you even take
Yeah,
that statement. Like, what is close for
yeah,
Yuta? Like,
because
how much cursed energy is that?
either he has like the best poker face in the world, or this guy is just like he's just not there. You know?
I just think generally, like he's aware of the several ace in the holes he has. Like if you had, even if you were like about to run out of cursed energy, right? If you had Rico, which could like refill your abilities, then you had several cursed tools that she had, and then on top of that, you had a domain expansion. Why would you be scared of two people who like just barely made you tire out now? Like I'd be like, dude, I'm still gonna beat your ass. Like I'm still gonna body you. But I think when I say that like Yuta is exerting the most, I don't mean that he's necessarily like physically tired. What I mean is he is like he is on a strict timer because this is his max, right? He has 5 minutes from the beginning of Rika's introduction to now. We don't know how much time has really passed. But whereas like Ishigori seems to still not be like full of Yuta, if that makes sense. Like Yuta's
Hot.
capabilities have still not completely satisfied him. But
Um.
yeah, Uro definitely seems to be the most desperate.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
So
she's super strong, but like it's just like it's like a wow, like I'm able to handle this level, but like I'm not smiling while I'm doing like I
yeah,
literally
like
am about to die.
yeah. So it is really she is fighting for her life in this battle. She's just doing a really good job of like being in the fight. I guess is that like a pretty good way to
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's extremely powerful when you remember that Yuta should be second only to Gojo out of modern sorcerers,
yeah.
and then you just say, yeah, like she is like able to swap hands and like take hits from Rika and Yuta and then like not instantly die. Like that's kind of insane. Um, she's doing better than 90% of the cast would do against these level of fighters.
Yeah, I definitely think in this situation she's the Jogo in terms of matchup. You know, comparatively, Yuta, like let's say Yuta one on one would definitely be a bit much for her to handle, especially with Rika from the jump. A bit much. No, she'd get washed if it was like fresh Yuta with Rika and they just yeah. So right now her and Ishigori like doing their half team up, half fighting. It's weird to call what they have a collaboration or a partnership. It's more like a very very like casual or convenient alliance. And I will say I'm never going to take any ancient sorcerer's word that like a modern sorcerer is washed after this fight. Like straight up, cuz you know like the second the two of you have to team up against a modern day sorcerer and you're like one of the strongest people in the Culling games, then you know you're fucking liars. Like you are liars.
And here's the thing, you know what's crazy? I doubt that like Uro and Ishigori were even impressive back then though. Like to
Really,
me, they don't no, they're impressive now, right? But I don't think they like
I will say Uro because she definitely has the attitude of somebody who is like a loser. But Ishigori has like he doesn't have the attitude of somebody who's like the fight seems to be like the whole like setting a table glutton aspect of his character to me speaks out of consistent dissatisfaction from fighting. It's an implication, yeah.
yeah. But I think the dissatisfaction he had was not because that like he didn't fight strong people. It's because he's like settled down, right? Because like in like 2 chapters ago, he's like, you know, he said he fought worthy opponents, met a good woman. He's like, so I don't really have regrets, but like I had my meal. I never had dessert though.
Oh, so you
And
think
I think
this is
he's
him going like for extra?
I think this is like the extent of like how far he could go. And just call this an implication, or I guess not an implication, just call this a guess. But I don't think Ishigori or Uro were top tiers in like compared to like the Heian period.
Well, we already know like the top of the Heian period sorcerers was Sukuna, right? Like that's definitively a statement, right? But when it comes down to what you want to call like when we talk about the hierarchy of the ancient sorcerers, we have to also like think it's not like every one of them was fighting. There were sorcerers like Kenjaku who, you know, isn't fucking scrapping 24/7 or looking for a fight to the death, right? He's powerful, but he has his own goals that like are outside the purview of combat. And I don't see why he would be the only sorcerer to fit that description. Obviously for like the Culling games, the sorcerers he chose are going to be fighters more often than not. But I think the fact that, like, when you take all of Jujutsu sorcerers, like the profession of Jujutsu sorcerers, right? Not even curse users. Any Jujutsu sorcerer that Kenjaku made a pact with are A, traitors to Jujutsu society. Because, like, let's be real, if you were willing to get reincarnated past your death as, like, a cursed object into a vessel to, like, fight in a murder game, you're probably not the best person. And second, when it comes to curse users, I feel like a lot of them are going to be people who lost to Sukuna, at least for the Heinen era classic sorcerers. I'd say newer classic sorcerers, which sounds like an oxymoron, like Reggie. I have a hard time understanding why they signed up.
I mean, another chance at life.
Okay,
I think that's reason enough.
but they're not winning, you know?
Yeah, they're not winning, but like Reggie had no idea he would get bullied, probably.
Yeah, but I feel like
because Reggie's like,
there has to be a threshold there, is all I'm saying, right? Like everybody and their mom knew about Sukuna, right? In
yeah,
Jujutsu world. So to hear that A, Sukuna's vessel is resurrected and B is in the games, you'd kind of feel like, okay, think about it, like if you were in the Culling games, right? And you found out Sukuna was not only resurrected in a proper vessel, but he's also technically officially entered in the games as Sukuna / Yuji. But like this, you don't know about their dynamic, right? So from your perspective, you just know that Sukuna's in the game. Why would you think you have any chance of winning?
So let me ask this: do you think they were entered into the Culling games before or after they were aware of Sukuna's presence? Because that changes everything. If they're aware, then yeah, you got a lot to answer for. But if they weren't, then I would just think Reggie probably is like confident in his abilities, which he shouldn't not be. He's a pretty strong character. Like he's like a high tier first grade. Yeah, which I think is like not weak. I don't think like a lot of it depends on like how aware of the competition are you, right?
Okay.
Which I think is something we just don't happen to know. Even still, right? If I was aware Sukuna is back in the game, I either remain dead or take a shot in the dark at like not dying. I guess I'll try to take a shot in the dark. Like that's just my perspective.
Well, for ancient sorcerers, wasn't it implied that they were basically awoken at roughly the same time?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and reread some of that because the specifics of the reincarnation are things that like I don't. Unfortunately, I don't know like the specific rules off the top of my head.
Ishigori really blasted Uro with that full Grant blast, huh?
Yeah. Honestly, that might have been Gege's biggest mistake. Honestly, Uro should have kept going in the fight. Obviously, for reasons not related to her looks. I promise.
Yeah, that's a broken Ronin, I know.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't gotten the points for her death yet, so that's good. I imagine that he's still gonna like work a little bit on the.
Yeah, no, I don't think she died. But do you think she's out of the fight?
She got her arm ripped off and got hit with a granite blast to the chest.
I forgot about the arm thing, bro. That's hilarious.
Yeah, probably. You know what's wild?
Oh.
She just when she gets her arm ripped off, she just says like, "Ow, you destroyed my arm." Like I don't know. I guess you're a sorcerer. I mean, Ishigori says that like even if like she uses reverse curse technique, like regenerating her arm would be like insane to do, which I think kind of implies that like she can't do it. Or maybe it's going to be something that like saps her of curse energy completely.
I mean, after a domain, right, and after this prolonged fight, like how much damage do you think his blast took out of her?
I mean, I think she went from being able to continue fighting, albeit at a weaker level, to she's unconscious.
Right. And
so like, yeah,
I'm kind of pressed to how the hell she's been contending with this with them so far, purely because on a cursed energy amount level, she hasn't been stated to be special in any particular way. She just seems like the bulk of her abilities were just the fact that like it was hard to hit her without her deflecting the attack. But if that's nullified, right, tanking one of Ishigori's attacks head on like that seems like a death sentence.
I mean, like even Yuta can't do that, right? Like Yuta had to use reverse curse technique every time he got hit with granite blast.
Dude, Rika could barely do that.
Yeah, Rika like deflects it, and that's supposed to be like a super impressive thing to do.
Yeah.
Because when Yuta tried to do that, he got his hand he got like literally several of his fingers were ripped off, and Ishigori just stated every time me and Uro used one of our big attacks, he's been using reverse curse technique. So Yuta can't tank these attacks either. I just think Ishigori just can essentially, like, if he gets an unguarded attack, he's one-shotting even Yuta.
Yeah. And honestly, Uro gets back up after that with minimal to no effect. Gege goes from A plus to A minus.
Maybe? I don't know. What do you mean by, like, you mean continue fighting, or she just, like, survives?
Continues fighting, like at borderline peak performance, and I'm saying something like she heals her arm, and she has enough cursed energy to deal with the winner of the conflict, who's probably going to be Yuta.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt she's going to. What I imagine is Yuta wins. He like goes after Uro. Maybe Uro wakes up and starts like talking about like her like clan.
Yeah.
Something similar. I don't think that she's going to like get back up. I don't think she's pulling a cockroach merely because she has to use reverse curse technique for one to regen. And you know, Ishigori said, yeah, it'd be impressive if you could heal that arm, right? But then what he does is hit her with a point blank attack that maybe you could say like, oh, maybe she did what Toto did, and like concentrated all of her cursed energy into her torso to like not instantly be like ripped apart.
Yeah, but then all her cursed energy would just be gone at that point.
Yeah, even still, it would just be like, oh, now she's nullified it from a killing blow to like, I'm unconscious and incapacitated, which is not much better in this context.
Right, but I'm saying at this point, it feels like she's out of the fight 100%, and more or less, it seems like what my theory is that after Yuta wins, he's just gonna like wake her up, she does the clan thing, yada yada yada, and depending on how their interaction goes, she might either try to curse him or give him her points, and then he kills her.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. There's like while I love theorizing about stuff, it's just like, dude, Gege does not fuck with theories. Apparently, he just really does not like me thinking about things like ahead of time. Like he's just like, no, yeah, that theory you had, not even close. Like I get where you were coming from, but I'm so much smarter. Like that was one of a million possibilities, and you know, I'm going with this one or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited for the next chapter because I feel like the next chapter we're going to get back to like chapter 177 in terms of like kind of hype, where it's like we're just seeing them clash, we're seeing them bring out new abilities. Now that Rika's out, I wonder if Yuta's going to bring out a new curse tool. Is he going to, like, we know Yuta's curse technique is inactive for now. Is that really even an issue? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious, when do you think we're going to see Sukuna again?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, because what I think is going to happen after this, we're going to see
Hakari.
Yeah, Hakari and Kashimo, which, by the way, just in case anybody doesn't know, a lot of sucks are in Kashimo. I think he's very strong. Ask me why, I wouldn't be able to tell you outside of he's aware of Sukuna's existence and he wants smoke. I think you have to be like either like, and I don't say this in a, like an exaggeratory way. Like you literally have to be like off your rocker, right? I'm not like, oh, he's just dumb. No, you literally have to be something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
In order to challenge Sukuna, or you have to be absurdly strong yourself.
Not even the thought of challenge, but like, oh yeah, I can win.
Yeah, like I like not just like, oh, if he's here, I'll fight him, but it's like, where is he at? I'm like, yo, that's insane for you to say that. Like that's kind of a crazy thing.
Bro, trying
to just be like,
trying to speed run a suicide. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's either he's extremely stupid, or he's like, where the real sorcerers at, right? If he's stupid, well then a lot of my stocks are going down the drain. But I'm betting pretty highly on Kashimo being strong. Now, this Hakari thing could go one of two ways. Hakari can either be hyped up a lot as like, you know, someone who was kind of he's like apparently stronger than Yuta, in the words of the man himself, or Kashimo puts him in a pack and like beats him up. But I don't know, man. I just don't know.
What's your opinion on the whole Hakari strength conversation?
He's strong, but probably not stronger than Yuta. He probably just has weird, like his abilities are just very weird, and probably makes it hard for someone like Yuta to deal with. Like it's not a matter of like ability though. I think the narrator statement just solidifies that Yuta's kind of bullshitting, or there are special conditions that are necessary for Hakari to get that strong.
So you think that Yuta's not a reliable narrator here?
There's no reason to, because like Yuta's, I was saying this in fact to a friend of mine, but Yuta's super humble. At least here, like unless he's playing a character like he does in the Yuji fight, Yuta comes off to me as like someone who would really defer to other people and like hype up other people's strength, like even like irregardless of his own. So like versus Yuji, he's like, I have more curse energy than Gojo, and even while he's saying that, even though it's not necessary, he mentions that Gojo is still more impressive than him. Even when like that statement, like he could just say he has more curse energy than Gojo, leave it at that, but he doesn't and takes the extra step to say, oh, like yeah. I wouldn't want to step out of line and say like I'm stronger than Gojo, right? But I just have more curse energy. That's all.
That's all.
And then for him to say like, oh, Hakari's stronger than Maki's, like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
And then the narrator to say, second only to Gojo. I think Yuta's just being a super humble person.
It's funny that you say that, because I can't imagine how Hakari would be stronger than a guy who can copy other people's curse techniques the way that Yuta does, with seemingly better performance, by the way. He doesn't seem to get the same level of drawbacks that Inumaki gets when he uses that technique.
Yeah. I mean, even if he did, reverse curse technique would just mitigate that. So it could be something like that where it's like...
Yeah, but also I think from what I remember about that technique, it's based off the power of the curse speech user. And obviously Yuta's at a different fucking level than Inumaki, so his penalty is probably way lower.
Yeah, unless he speaks to like Sukuna or Gojo or something and it's like die, then yeah, he probably should be. It should be like a much easier thing to deal with.
This is actually a thing. Okay, this might take over the rest of the episode. We'll try not to make it do that, but you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Having watched the movie now, by the way, I just ordered the manga. It's coming next week, so pretty psyched about that. Yeah. Having done that, though, current Yuji versus Geto at the end of Night Parade.
Geto would probably beat him up.
Okay, diff. Go.
Mid diff.
You know what? Better than I was expecting. I was expecting you to fucking cape for Geto the entire time. All right.
Geto's really strong. Like, Yuta would have gotten obliterated if he didn't kind of cheat.
I know that's stated, but like obviously I don't think either of us is going to argue that like a modern Yuta wouldn't absolutely fucking destroy Geto.
Yeah, I think modern Yuta is just like a much stronger version of himself than before.
Yeah.
I just think that like what Yuta did is I would think of it as like sort of similar to what Gon does when he goes adult form. Like he sacrifices future potential and future abilities, not to the same extent, but he sacrifices like Rika, right, which is a major part of his power in exchange for being able to beat him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think extremely high diff. Geto still wins, but that's assuming he still has all 10,000 demons. Or 10,000 spirits.
If it's the same Geto, then yeah, probably. It's kind of hard because that Geto doesn't get in very many fights.
Yeah, but the whole reason, the thing that like prompted me to go down this pipeline was the Black Flash, which by the way, super sick.
Yep, very cool.
Yeah, but the fact that like Yuta was able to hit a single Black Flash, and it was enough to rock Geto, you know what I mean? I was thinking, man, would he even be able to handle Yuji up close, like in personal combat? Because my take is like Geto's been shown like almost as a running gag in the series to be like to lure people into fighting him in close quarters combat and just absolutely fucking wrecking them when they realize, oh shit, he's
actually, yeah, even though he's a curse manipulator, he's like really good at fighting.
Yeah, but I'm curious how good he actually is. Like obviously modern Maki or Toji just embarrass him, right? Yeah. But seeing as how we established that Yuji's in the tier below them, but above like everybody else, where would you put his chances in close quarters?
I could see Yuji, like if like Geto doesn't use his technique, I could see Yuji probably beating Geto up a little bit. I don't think it's like a wash though, and the reason I say that is because Geto with his staff was like kind of like he beat back Rika and Yuta simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And then the only reason he gets hit with a Black Flash is because when Yuta's sword breaks, he takes it as like, he's not going to attack me now, right? Because like, that's the only way Yuto's fought up to this point. He's been a swordsman, right?
Right.
So I take it as like, he got kind of caught off guard by, you know, in the height of his arrogance, in the height of like seeing Yuta's main weapon be destroyed. He's kind of like, oh, monologue time. And then Yuta punches him in his face, right? I think if he sees Yuji from the jump fight like that, I don't think he gets the same opportunity, but I also do think Yuji's probably a better fighter than Yuta is at that point.
Yeah, because my whole thing was modern Yuta has been shown to be like at least rivaling Yuji with cursed energy speed. So we don't, like, obviously the conversation of whether or not he can surpass that speed is on last episode of the greatest podcast on earth. So watch that. But you know, with that in mind, I'm curious if you think that speed feat where he like temporarily blitzes Geto is on that level or lower.
Lower, I'd say.
I would also say that. I would also say that. So my theory is like by extension that means Yuji is also faster than that. Therefore, if that's shown to be enough to blitz Geto, then Yuji's speed would be enough to like rock him a little bit.
Probably. Like, I'm not mad at the take. The only issue is, like, I think when you're talking about when like when he disappears behind him and then swings his blade and it breaks, right? Is that the blitz you're referring to?
Yeah.
So I agree. I think there's a few like contextual things that make it a little bit different. One, we know Geto has to be aware of Rika because she's arguably more dangerous than Yuta is himself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, even though Yuta gets behind Geto, like, he still does turn around and react to it. So, like, to me, it's like one of those things where, like, he's like, oh, Yuta was much slower than this before. Now he's like in a completely different tier of speed, probably enough to like actually be a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But like, because like, yeah, when Geto reacts, like he sees it, he dodges where Yuta was swinging. It looks like to me, and he throws the punch, right? So I still think Geto's faster than Yuta at this point. And I don't even think that like the only point where I'd say like, oh yeah, Yuta is just stronger than Geto is when he unlocks all of Rika's abilities and then shoots off the cursed energy blast. I don't think there's any other point in the fight where like, oh, you could say Yuta was gonna win.
I agree. I think I'm not mad at that take. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't even have Yuji winning this fight. I just think it's a nice thought to wonder where Yuji's at in terms of old villains and stuff, because Geto is one of the 4 special grades, right? So even the prospect of like being very high diff for somebody like that is still insanely impressive, and I think speaks volumes to Yuji's place in the verse, because when you think about it, Yuji's growth has been a little gnarly, and I don't think we've actually seen how crazy his strength has gotten, because after Shibuya, right, or after that whole incident with Yuta, he never actually had a real proper fight at full strength, right? First Hakari, he wouldn't fight back, and with Panda it was like a fake fight, and with Higuruma, no cursed energy, yeah, and he was still able to like put up quite a bit of fight, yeah, in a domain, you know. And Higuruma's like melee.
Yeah,
So
it's not like he's like not good with that type of combat. The only thing is, I think like if you have them fighting close, I think the fight goes in Yuji's favor with it being pretty high diff just because of the staff or playful cloud, I should say.
Are you?
And then like the fact that
this is Geto versus Yuji.
Yeah, Geto.
Oh, you would have Yuji win
if it's if it's close quarters.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I'm saying if Geto just fights in character, he probably beats Yuji, not easily, but that's why I say mid diff, just because like, okay, if Yuji gets 4,000 cursed spirits thrown at him, because like the Geto that fights Yuta is kind of like poking and prodding, trying to force more power out of him.
Like an idiot. Yes.
Because I mean, it makes sense for his technique, because curses, when he absorbs a curse, they stop growing after he absorbs them. So I imagine he would want Rika at her most powerful, so that like he gets the most bang for his buck or whatever, right? But if you say that he doesn't do that with Yuji, and he's just like, okay, I have 4,000 curses, I'm going to just unleash them, not in this big blast, but I'm literally just going to have 4,000 curses strapped with you, right? I don't think Yuji's getting away from that without some at least, not it doesn't have to be damage, but at least fatigue. And if he's then if he's like severely fatigued fighting after Geto or whatever, I just don't think it's going to be like.
I guess the core of what I'm trying to ask is, do you think Yuji is at least not safely, definitely not safely or firmly, but approaching solid footing in like low special grade territory?
I mean, like he's been a special grade, or he's been able to fight special grade curses for a long time, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, because like, okay, Gojo clearly not. We don't know what Yuki can do. Like, we have absolutely no idea, honestly.
And from Geto's perspective, he's bad showcase because that Yuta fight was. But would you consider teen, like, how strong would you say teen Geto is compared to his adult form?
Kind of garbage, I guess. I just think he should probably have less curses.
True, but I don't know. He and Gojo were considered, the strongest together.
Yeah, but they're only at that point. They're only grade 1 sorcerers, though. So
that's true. And this is Gojo pre-awakening and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
okay, fine. You know, aside from Yuta, no, I think Yuta is the most developed special grade we've gotten because I don't count Gojo. He hasn't had a fight yet.
Yeah, you mean like one where he's pushed?
Yeah, he's had like inconveniences, to his schedule, but otherwise,
Yeah, I mean,
And
Gojo's
Sukuna's,
obviously the pinnacle, and like Yuji's nowhere near that. Yuji's
yeah,
nowhere near Yuta yet.
and
Yuki is just up in the air. Who knows where she's at?
and aside from that, when you take a look at like, if you don't just limit the scope to Jujutsu sorcerers, even cursed spirits are a bad matchup compared to other sorcerers because the gap is always going to be like a grade 1 sorcerer is stronger than a low special grade cursed spirit,
Mhm.
right?
The
Because
grade 1 sorcerer should never lose to a grade 1 cursed spirit, and I don't think
yeah.
Yuji is handling like a majority of special grade curses. Like I don't think not in the way that I think a special grade should. I'll
Okay,
say that.
so here's the thing: he did handle a disaster level curse with Mahito, right? But do you put Mahito as the strongest or weakest member of that group, like
It's not
compared
even
to?
about that. It's just that Yuji loses without much assistance. Nobara helps him quite a bit. Even with just one attack, she weakens him a lot.
Yeah,
Todo is necessary. Yuji can't win by himself in that fight.
true, but
Um,
like you have to consider his growth at both intervals, right? Like he was just kind of down and out, right? This was before the I'm a cog thing. Like
yeah.
essentially you have all of Yuji's best fights happening in conjunction with his character development, right? So we've never seen
Mhm.
like I said, we've never seen current Yuji actually fight, with current mindset, current abilities, current everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, I guess. The closest thing I think you could say is just really the Mahito fight. Honestly, I would still say he's probably not there. Like, I still don't think he's probably beating, like, Mahito comes to the fight fresh, right? I
Yeah.
still don't think he's beating Mahito, which I think is fine. I think that's okay. Um, because Nobara, like, I think weakens his soul a lot, right? Obviously, Yuji grows from there, but that's necessary for him to help. Todo is like super duper integral to Yuji's win. Like in fact, that's like Yuji would have just gotten like slammed in the face if like Todo didn't trick Mahito.
Yeah, like I'm not discounting the help he got, but I'm just saying he does it is shown that he does get stronger from these encounters, right? So obviously he's not special grade yet because we've seen special grade sorcerers and what they look like. And I definitely stand by the statement we made last week or the week before when we discussed if it was Megami or Yuji in the fight in Sendai Colony, they would get washed easily,
Yeah, they
right?
would instantly die.
Right? But I'm just wondering if that's the case. A that means that even Ishigori and Uro, who we just said are probably not like the very top tier of the classic age sorcerers, at least put up like an insanely good fight against somebody like Yuta, who's a modern day like number 2.
Hmm.
Then like Yuta's the ceiling, essentially is what I'm trying to get at, right? Like you, as it stands right now, out of all the modern day sorcerers, Yuta is absolutely, most certainly, the ceiling.
Yeah. So
And
far, I agree. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
so when we get to other sorcerers from the classic era fighting in presumably the middle of the story, because I think the end is going to be a story. Fuck me, the arc. Um, then I think we're like the closer we get to the end of the arc, it's going to be about Kinjaku specifically.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm just very a big proponent of like every character is going to grow similarly to how Yuji kind of did, if not like to a greater extent. I think, for example, if like say someone like Megami is gonna get a power up, this is really the time because he's not useful. Not he's not useful, but like if you were to have him like fight Kashimo, even though we haven't seen much from him, I just think based off of like the small dialogue we have seen, he's probably getting waxed. Ishigori would bully him, Uro would bully him, like even the cockroach curse would probably beat him up. And I feel like if at all, unless there's like another massive arc after this, I think now is the time for him to either decide to master his domain or make one similar to Sukuna, and then like hey Mahoraga, however he plans to go about that. Like, and it would be weird because it's like how are you going to find the time to do that in the midst of all this?
yeah.
But I feel feel like
And
this is like the time. Like he needs these big haymakers if he wants to really compete with old sorcerers, along with just like sorcerers that are just super strong now.
Yes, and I think that speaks volumes to like the power scale is still in flux as it stands right now, right? Because we genuinely just have not seen what the ceiling looks like for all the characters, right? Modern and present day, because it seems like right now, as it stands, present day sorcerers are just, despite them winning, they're like on the verge of death.
Yeah, like Megami won through like insane trickery, right?
Yeah, and like
he was just a better con man than Reggie.
Yeah, and
Yuta is an anomaly.
yeah,
And then Yuji would have died. And Higuruma's not even an old age sorcerer. Yeah. Yuji would have lost.
Yuji is fine. Even after all the punishment Higuruma inflicted on him, and despite like how the fight turned out narratively, physically speaking, he's
he's cool.
Yeah, he's fine. Like he got his scarce energy back, he's chilling. So like even new modern day sorcerers who are considered prodigies like Higuruma, probably really strong. No, they are really strong compared to like other sorcerers. Like Higuruma was obviously, he didn't get that 100 points out of nowhere.
Yeah, and he was able to like Yuji would have just, like, I want to reiterate, Yuji would have died if Higuruma did not have his, like, if Yuji wasn't such, like, a good person that made Higuruma, like, have his character shift, Yuji would have just lost his life this early in the games.
Yeah. What I think this is all leading to is there's going to be, and this is my little theory corner here, there's going to be an enemy, I don't know who the matchup's going to be, but there's going to be an old sorcerer who is just going to be too much to handle, who is going to like solidly put the current Jujutsu students in their place. Who that is going to be determined. I don't think Hakari's losing his fight, for what it's worth.
I know, honestly, I don't, you know how crazy it would be if like after this fight, it's like the narrator's like on to Hakari and Kashimo's fight, and then Hakari's just like laying on the side of the road and whatever. Honestly, I'm just getting into my head again, and I don't even know why I think that'd be true, but
why you hate Hakari so much?
I don't hate Hakari. Like I that's why I have mixed feelings about it, because like that'd be such a raw way to introduce Kashimo, but like damn, Hakari would be like off screen or whatever. I don't know. It's weird because like I just really have high expectations for Kashimo, I think. Maybe too high, who knows?
Why don't you have high expectations for Hakari after the way Gege's been gassing him?
I do have high expectations for Hakari, but he's on the good people. He's on the good guy side. So like I know those are going to be fulfilled. Knock on wood. But like Kashimo is like, we've seen, okay, Higuruma, he's not defeated, but he's out of the story temporarily, right? Reggie, he's cool, but he got beat. And then Uro and Ishigori's most likely going to die, and Uro might die, or maybe, I don't know what Gege wants to do with her. But like, I don't think like Hakari is safe, so long as, weird rule, but so long as his curse technique hasn't been revealed, he most likely isn't going to die. So if he just gets off screen without revealing his curse technique, he's fine. He'll just be like beat up and then, somehow dip. I don't want him to die yet, but I do really want Kashimo to be like, to come off as like a very threatening antagonist.
Who the fuck is Maki gonna fight?
Gotta be Angel if Angel's bad.
Yes, that would be a sick matchup because like no curse technique. So I definitely think Maki versus Angel will be sick. I'm curious to see how Maki's new and improved form will fare against classic sorcerers, because everybody with the heavenly restriction has never really shown to lose a fight, except for Toji after like Gocho's awakening, right? But that's the bar, right? Like everybody's gonna lose to that thing. Like Maki went on a slaughter of like one of the 3 great clans and killed all their head members, essentially, right? And might I say, post double injury, she was essentially a walking corpse, and she was able to still do it, right? And I'm curious, going into the Culling games fresh, if she's gonna come out the other end, go into this end as a game changer. And what like the game's rules aren't gonna affect her. Angel's techniques aren't gonna affect her. It seems like Maki's gonna win the Culling games? Is that where this is headed? Like, what the fuck?
I just need Maki to show up and really just get shit done. I think whenever she pops up, that is going to be a stretch of the manga that is going to be like insanely hype, even within the context of like the Culling games, which I know is kind of a high bar.
I think that like when we get back to the meta part of these JJK chapters week to week, and to quickly repeat what we said at the beginning of this whole chapter review thing. The reason I think we both gave it 8s is just because the flow of this particular chapter felt a little strange. It read, and like, speak for yourself here, but like, to me it read like a volume chapter, not a week.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, this isn't like this chapter currently is not built for like your entertainment on a weekly to weekly basis. Yeah. I see the take, like I understand it, like I comprehend what you mean. I don't necessarily agree. The reason I personally have it at an 8 is like I don't think it did anything wrong. I just think I'm a little salty that it blue balled me, which is fine. I think there are a lot of times Gege does that, and I like really appreciate it later. So like I'm not like,
Well,
this is a bad writing choice, which I
about
know
the
you aren't either.
about the
But
three-way domains.
yeah, for me, I'm like,
Wait, but
I'm not. I don't think it.
I wouldn't consider it blue balling just because like, I get where you're coming from, and I definitely understand the take, right? But to me, it doesn't bother me because it makes perfect sense with the narrative. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
a three-way domain with like all these like high-level sorcerers, they're just because we've seen even with like a big gap in power, like with Megami and Dagon,
Mhm.
domains like if there's any other domain interference, it's gonna cancel out the always hit, always kill technique part of it, which is like
Mhm.
half a domain basically. So
Yeah.
obviously I don't see why a three-way domain of that level would even function, right? It would just kind of short circuit. Like it makes
Yeah.
sense. It would have been cool to
Yeah.
see, but
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. It makes sense, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that like I wanted to see a three-way domain expansion.
yeah.
Like
Okay, I
the
get it.
lizard brain was like, dude, three-way domain expansion peak, and we didn't get that, which is fine. It makes sense. I'm like, it means we're gonna get a Yuta domain expansion later down the line, which secures it. Which knock on wood secures his survival for till later down the series, which I'm happy for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that reveal is going to be crazy. But so a little slightly salty because of that, and also just like it just wasn't as overwhelmingly hype as the other few chapters have been, which isn't even a knock. It's just like a statement of, oh, it's good, really good actually. It just didn't achieve like super great tier, which I think is like not even a bad thing. It's fine. Like not every chapter has to be really great.
And well, I'd prefer if it was great.
Yeah, I'd prefer if it was great, but like I'm not mad that it's like oh no, I got a really good chapter instead of a great one. Gege fell off for real.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that like if this was like let's say the worst a JJK chapter ever got, I wouldn't mind because it's still better than like most other chapters out there right now. I just want to freak out, bro. I just want to like have a fucking like you said a lizard brain fanboy moment where I'm just like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, get him, bro." Uh
Kill him. Which I think we might have next chapter, but I don't know. We'll see. It could be a very cerebral. What I honestly love when Gege does that, like the super detailed breakdown of like how they beat the other. That's why I think Megami versus Reggie is like unironically one of the best fights in the
yes,
series.
and
Solely because
Chozo
of like
versus Yuji.
yes,
Yes.
dude. When you
Yeah.
get really into like when you mix really well the action and the mental part, I'm like, yeah, Gege really pops off with those fights, but I'm cool with it either way.
Taking like a semi-hard pivot and talking about our main topic for this episode, which is the whole pacing slash consumption of manga and how it affects you thing, which is like the worst way to describe this topic, but it's hard
So
to
like how does reading a manga weekly versus binge reading it like affect the actual experience, I
yeah,
think.
but it's not just like those two experiences because there's also a matter of, well, does the story fit that kind of storytelling? Is there even a way to change that kind of storytelling to better fit the reading experience? And essentially, how do you balance that with the fact that like you're going to have weekly reading experiences and you're going to have it in a collected volume, right? So how do
Mhm.
you prioritize? Because for JJK it's an amazing weekly read, but it's also an amazing volume read, right? Do you dock points for series who don't exactly flow the same way or flow in one way over the other? And the example I gave you over text was Tokyo Revengers.
Mhm.
And just to kind of summarize it for the people listening, essentially what I said was one of the biggest takes I've seen on Twitter and stuff is people saying Tokyo Revengers sucks when you're reading it week to week in this arc. But once it's collected in volumes or on binge reads, it's like way better. And you want to give him
Yeah.
your answer to that?
Yeah. So I caught up with Tokyo Revengers. I'm not caught up now. Like I caught back up with where it was like a while ago, maybe about a month ago. So like maybe only 4 or 5 chapters have come out since then. And my take is essentially this, right? I think that Tokyo Revengers functions good on a binge read, like very good for most of the arcs, except for like two. I think every arc in Tokyo Revengers is just very fun. It's straight. I'm like, this is super exciting. The characters are really cool. The plot is moving forward. There's a lot of mystery. Overall, pretty good. The second to last arc that we've been in, I I started noticing that I didn't like it as much. And then recently, I think that like it's a weird combination because weekly reads are much harder to get right. But I think Tokyo Revengers just became ass, and I started catching up to it, if that makes sense. So, like, I don't think it's now there are examples I could give for like, oh, I don't really enjoy this on a weekly read, or I just prefer not to read this weekly. But I think Tokyo Revengers is just genuinely bad right now. That's my like my take or whatever. I think that like it being weekly somewhat contributes to my opinion on it, but I think that like the series has gotten really stale, and it being on a weekly basis makes that staleness super apparent. So like for example, with My Hero, I think like My Hero's the Hatsume chapter, which is something we talked about quite a bit on this on the podcast. That chapter would not have bothered me nearly as much as it has now if I binge read it, binge read it, right? Like if I was just like, oh, I read the chapter, I'm on to the next chapter, that would have been fine. That would have been whatever, because it's like it's a small blip on the overall experience that I have. Yeah. But it was the focus of the week. That was it. That was garbage for an entire week. To hold me off, I did not like that at all. And I think that like there's a very tough balancing act that you have to take on when trying to write a story that like is exciting weekly, but also like even works as like its overarching narrative, which is something that I think series like Jujutsu Kaisen, no surprise, does pretty well. Like the way that does that, or the way that it is handled. Off the wall, one that I just thought of, but My Hero Academia Vigilantes is also one that I've recently liked reading weekly and has worked in a binge. I like both of my experiences with that. It's just like a fun, I read it weekly, I get hype, and then, after the chapter is over, I just move on. But yeah, typically I think binge reads are just more fun. You don't have to deal with like this painful weight. No. I think there are a lot of series out there that do work really well on a weekly read. Yeah. What about you though? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. I'm about to come out like a fraud right now, but as I'm sure you and everybody listening knows, I'm a bit of a One Punch Man fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even I'll admit, dude, I cannot stand reading it chapter by chapter. It is a terrible reading experience. It is frustrating, it is infuriating, and more importantly, it is unsatisfying.
Yeah.
But I say that with absolute love for the series, right?
Murata just doesn't put enough in each chapter for it to feel like, oh, this was rewarding for 2 weeks or a month of wait, right?
And like this is the most consistent and shortest amount of time between chapters in One Punch Man's entire like almost 10-year run, right?
Mm.
My whole problem is that I saw this thing that really sparked this rabbit hole that I'm taking you guys on with me, where somebody said, I miss the days where One Punch Man was monthly, because then it felt like more shit was happening. And I'll admit, dude, I'm a fan of like 40-page chapters. I'm a sucker for that. That's like half a volume right there. But I do like getting more consistent injections of One Punch Man at like a steady rate, just from my own like feeling of, okay, I have something to look forward to with this thing, yada yada yada. What I've ended up finding out is in a month you'll get 2 chapters, because every 2 weeks, right? You'll roughly have 20 pages each chapter drop, so that's 40 pages anyway. And I'd rather have 40 pages worth of content than, I guess, 20 pages divided. Wow, dude, I am just like at the end of my rope here. Fuck me.
No, I can pick up where you left off there. I think the thing is, it's like it's unsatisfying. So here's something I thought of while you were speaking. I think what a chapter needs to do in order to function properly on a weekly basis is it needs to properly tell its own complete story, like in its like in that chapter, right?
Especially if it releases that sparsely.
Yeah, it needs a very clear beginning, middle, and end, which obviously is, duh, right? If you're writing a story, something needs a beginning, middle, and end. But I think it needs to even go down to the, obviously you have acts of a story, and then you have things like that are broken down within those acts. With a manga that releases weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever, I think that like those stories need to have a set beginning, right? Like this is what is happening. And then they need to have like a satisfying reason that we reach the conclusion, which I think is something that like the most recent chapter of One Punch Man like didn't do. I don't know if you agree with that, but like it's like its conclusion was weak for me. So to use One Punch Man as an example, right? This One Punch Man chapter 158, right? Did not come off as a story. Came off rather as like a series of tangentially related events that I felt like were like very not fun.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Back the fuck up. You keep up?
What's up?
You keep up?
Yeah, I read One Punch Man every time chapters drop.
Bro, this is Whiplash all over again. This is... You keep doing this shit, VR, and I don't like it.
Right, yeah, I don't keep up with, like, the webcomic, but I keep up with Murata's illustrations of it.
Oh, the webcomic fucking slaps. I recommend it. It's also, a much shorter read.
Was it, like, finished? Is it, like, completed or whatever? Or is it still
You're funny, bro. You're mad funny.
I don't know. Oh, it's still ongoing then. That's crazy.
Yeah, just a casual year break in between chapters. No big deal.
Nice. But like, so to reiterate the point, I just think that like this chapter was just kind of like a random collection of events.
I'm not letting this go yet. You're telling me this entire time you've been reading One Punch Man weekly, and you just sat there. And you heard me being fucking lunatic about One Punch Man not 2 months ago, and you stayed silent. How dare you?
Well, unfortunately, One Punch Man has not released anything recently worth talking about.
That's not even okay. Fuck, can't even argue there. But
it's just like
I know, but I didn't realize we could talk about One Punch Man on this fucking podcast. Because it's not like, obviously, I keep up with other series, and so do you, right? But we only, like, our Venn diagram is only at One Punch Man, oh my god, at, My Hero and JJK. So this is a bit of a shock for me right now.
I mean, yeah, if One Punch Man starts releasing more interesting content, we might be able to talk about it regularly.
I know, it's so frustrating. Bro, I just want the Garo Saitama fight to happen. I've been waiting since I was in fucking middle school.
Man.
Yeah, right? Oh my god.
This is like, it's just like, okay, the only thing of note that happens is Saitama meets up with Garo, right? And we get 3 pages of that, right? With no dialogue. Saitama pulls up, doesn't say anything. Oh, my fault. He says something. He says, what are you? Like, it's so in character, but like, dude, that's so lame for something I'm only getting for like
metal bat Garo thing. Oh, that's cool. Cool. Really fucking cool. Now can I please get Garo fighting Saitama? I'm begging you.
It's like, okay, listen, if you want to show that those other fights, that's cool. But like literally from page 1 to page 26, all that happens is that we see like a tidal wave get stopped by like a ship. Like, dude, that's so lame.
Yes.
That is so unbelievably boring. I just feel like I wasted my time, and I don't know.
Bro, and it's just like, I know when I read this all like in a binge read, it's gonna flow like pretty well. I'm gonna have a fun time reading it. Yeah, Saitama surfing a fucking like helicarrier is gonna be it's a sick visual, and it obviously looks beautiful, right? At the same time, it is the most frustrating thing to like actively wait for, especially when I think it was Sage Centipede. The Sage Centipede thing, like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, One Punch Man is good when there's fights, so I'm not like mad at that.
Yeah,
I guess.
So One Punch Man for me has always been a case of collect. Oh my god, just wait. Don't touch it. Don't open the chapters. Just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until like 8 to 10 chapters go by. So like 10 months, and then do a binge read.
Yeah. Which I do with some manga that I read a lot. Like there's some manga I haven't read that I love, like almost as much as I like, or maybe even more than Jujutsu Kaisen. I haven't read for several months solely because I know the binge reads just hit.
So the thing I really want to end on with this topic is purely the fact that like there are series out there that just suck week to week, that are better off being binged or read in volume onlys. By the way, shout out to volume only readers. Like, those are like a super. They're like the feet guys of like.
I've never even heard of that. I've never even
Yeah,
heard of somebody who only reads like they read like not on a weekly basis. They read volume to volume.
yeah.
Like
It is such a bizarre form of like consuming manga, but like still being too stubborn to like watch it in the anime when it comes out. Because what people who do that, sorry, not people who do that, because they obviously probably no, I don't think they know. Oh my god. So for those of you who don't know, manga volumes come out like 4 to 5 months earlier in Japan than they do in the States. So
yep.
like right now, in the States, 15 volume 15 of JJK is going to release on April 5th, right? In Japan, they're already on like volume 20.
Yeah, they're pretty far ahead.
Yeah, and by the time we get
Which
18,
is unfair.
yeah,
Honestly, though, I guess when you look at the difference in qualities between like Japanese manga volumes and like English ones or like American ones, whatever, it's somewhat understandable because I own the 14, 15, and 16 of like the Japanese version just because whatever.
Why? What?
I don't know. Why not?
Do you
It's very cheap.
Do you speak
Very, very cheap.
Japanese?
No, I just liked collecting them.
Also, hold on. What do you mean they're cheaper? Don't you? Isn't the import tax like crazy?
No.
No, bro, you gotta give me more than that. I want to know details. This is weird.
What do you mean? What details besides hey, it's not very expensive?
Where? Like Amazon?
No. It's like a website for I can link it to you after. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head though. I don't visit it very often.
All right. Well,
But
okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm curious as hell. Also, just like why?
I mean, why not? Cheap manga that is ahead of where I currently have. Yeah, why not? I don't know.
But you can't read it.
Okay, but manga is a textual and visual medium, so I can look at the pretty pictures.
But you
and hold
buy
them in
the
my
English
hand.
versions anyway.
Yeah.
Hey yo, I refuse to be the crazy guy in this interaction right now.
I mean, let me put it like this. There's no point in buying manga like ever because you can just read it wherever. But like you do that anyways. Like people collect. I just liked having the manga a little bit ahead of time. But if I can't read it, I basically can. Recite the dialogue of the fights by heart. So like even if I don't know, even if I can't read it, I still know what's being said. Like it's not, you know. If I grab volume 16 off my shelf and I just like start reading the fights, like I can get a very definitive grasp of like what is being said back and forth just because I've read and reread and like referenced all this stuff so many times. So even if for some reason I did need to be able to read it to collect it, I can do something that's a somewhat similar equivalent, I guess. I don't know. But it makes just about as much sense as like collecting a manga like that you can read online, just for fun. So yes, you are the crazy one here.
Wow.
I have to gaslight you into thinking if you think otherwise.
Okay. Back to the main topic, which was genuinely forgot BR. Like
yeah, I don't know either. I was hoping that wasn't a question because I certainly don't know.
The real question is this our worst episode?
No, definitely not.
Great idea for like episode 50 or whatever. Like we could do a tier list of our own episodes.
That'd be interesting. I'd have to remember what we even talked about though.
Yeah, for me, episode 8 is definitely going in like F tier.
Yeah, if episode 8 is what I'm remembering it to be, then yeah, probably, which is why I don't think this is the worst episode.
Like, I had to cut out like an hour, and it was like the most boring discussion. Like, neither of us, like if you would just watch that episode of the Honor Ones podcast and no other episode, you would think he and I just like fucking hate each other.
Yeah, which granted is true, but no, I'm joking. But
like, dude, horrible like experience, man. And I that's not a knock to you, but by the way, just like for our end, like I always like talking to you, man. But like, oof, that episode,
it's low energy. You can't have higher energy every time you record an hour-long plus podcast or whatever. So it's just bound to happen once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I say this isn't the worst episode because I think the JJK chapter we covered was interesting. We had a pretty good JJK discussion. Like regardless, if a JJK chapter comes out, I doubt it's going to be that bad. And then also pacing stuff, which I think was interesting. I think if you're a weekly series or a monthly or bi-weekly series and you suck on a weekly basis, for me that docks points because that means like in the form you're meant to be consumed in, you're garbage. Like, that's kind of like.
Well, you can argue the fact that like they're also meant to be doubly consumed in collected volumes.
Sure, but that would just mean that they have to be good in both, not that it can only be good in one. Like, for example, if you can like let's go with the food analogy, right? Like, let's say pizza's supposed to be good both cold and like hot, right? If I get a pizza that like is garbage when it's like warm, but like, oh, that's a pretty good cold pizza, then it's a bad pizza, right? Like, it has a good trait to it. It's like, oh yeah, I can eat this cold. But if like one of the main ways to consume this is not viable simply because it's made poorly or made in this way, then I would, even if you don't say it's bad, I think it would still be fine to say, oh, that is a bad thing, right? Like, if I can only consume this food under hyper specific conditions when it's usually supposed to be consumed in multiple ways, that is a negative trait of that food or that pizza, if you will. Lack of a better analogy.
Hell yeah. Spit.
talk that talk. He's on to something for real. But yeah, I think that's my take on the sort of like pacing and presentation when it comes to like manga specifically. I think anime falls into a similar camp. I think like a seasonal release where you're having like a weekly episodes drop. I think it's just a similar application of this discussion. It should be able to be interesting on a weekly basis and on a binge. If it's not, that's probably a negative trait. That's just me.
I agree. I'm sorry. Like, I was, for some reason, I started thinking about the Dragon Ball Super manga and how it releases monthly, and I was like, yeah, they do a pretty good job, all things considered. And I thought to myself, man, I can't believe I just called Dragon Ball Super's manga good.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Super is like very hit or miss with like its chapters. Like, so like the last chapter is pretty good.
It's just like Dragon Ball Super is the most unnecessary story in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it, but like I'm not like
looking forward to
super big
it.
fan.
Oh yeah, is Goku gonna die in this one?
Yeah, it's just kind of like whatever, dude. I don't.
Like, bro,
like,
honestly, I think it kind of peaked recently with Tournament of Power. Strictly because at that point, is Goku the villain? Like, straight up.
Yeah. I don't even know if I want to talk about Dragon Ball Super this long, but I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball. Bleh. I think Dragon Ball Super and kind of Boruto, which is I think of them in similar veins. They're just like a no thoughts, head empty type of manga that I read.
A lot of people fucks with Boruto now.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I think it's cool. I'm just not one of the people who's like, wow, this is like really good. But I'm also not one of those people that's like, oh, Boruto's ass, because I just think Boruto is just very, 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 very like mediocre.
I like that.
It's just like it's certainly a good passage of time, I guess.
I like that. This series passes time really well.
Yeah. Like if I'm like super bored when the chapter drops, I'm like, oh shit, a chapter dropped. Let me fix this boredom for like a minute or two, and then get back to the idleness that I was at just before. It's not like particularly exciting.
I don't know why that's so funny, but it is. It's like the most duty bound level of consuming media I've ever heard. Like, yeah. It's Boruto time, I guess. Here I go.
It's like eating vegetables kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Like, do I hate them? Not really, but...
Alright, thanks for watching, everybody. Subscribe.
Subscribe, or else I'm taking your kneecaps. So,
later.
See you guys later.